I made a video discussing the difference between the 7.62x53R that the Finnish use and the 7.62x54R. Now, when I did my work on Mosins, just off the top of my head, I think the groove diameter was supposed to be 311 at the smallest. And I forget what the bore diameter is. So if you look at 612, it could be 6,000 deep rifling, or let's say 5. Okay, 1,000. So 311.3, about a 30 caliber bore. Okay, with 10,000 added. So yeah, that's about right. About 301 or something, the bore size. So the thing about the Finnish guns is they're using a 30 caliber bore, and the rifling was supposedly on the 7.62x53. The rifling depth, or the groove depth, should have been 309.5, so 309,500. So it's probably some sort of a metric measurement. Alright, so what I've done is I have 3 of my Finnish guns. I have a Mosin 9130. Now I went and checked groove depth on 9130s, and they ranged anywhere from, I think 2 of them were 311 or 312, which was supposed to be, and they range anywhere up. I think I found one in there was 316. Okay, depending on the wear and so on and so forth. And tolerances during the war were probably a lot more loose or out of spec than during peacetime production also. So that's another thing with these guns you have to take into consideration. Even though the specification says it should be one thing, you may end up with something else. Alright, so let me show you what I did. I did 2 things. A, I slugged the barrel to get a groove depth, and B, I have my gauge pins to check the bore. Not the depth of the groove, but the hole in the middle of the bore. And I'll show you how the setup works. I started this video on measuring the bores of my Finnish rifles, and I did not, there was a delay in me getting this last rifle, this M27, into the group. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start the video just normally, and then I'm going to cut in after the M28 and go over the specs of the M27. Okay. Alright, so here are our rifles laid out here. Now for slugging the bore, you just need soft lead. Since these are 30 calibers, I just took 36 caliber lead balls, tapped them through, and we'll get down here where you can see you have the rifling on the lead slug. Okay? Now, next to them are gauge pins. What are gauge pins? This is a set of gauge pins. You can go on Amazon and get them. And what they are is precision ground pins. This starts at 251 thousandths, quarter inch, I think to half inch. Okay? And if you notice the ones missing, 299, 300, 301, that's how I'm measuring the bore. You know, I will tell you how measuring the bore works and how to get a precise measurement. And slugging a barrel, okay, I'll go over that first, but we'll get the camera back. Slugging a barrel is pretty simple. There's a lot of videos out there on it. Just soft round lead ball, close to the bore size, but oversized. Tap it through, put a little lubricant on it, tap it down through, and that's how you measure the groove diameter. Okay, so we've slugged the bore with pushing the ball through and getting it to engage the rifling And the fact that it kind of come up shows that the ball was oversized and the excessive lead was pushed up. So that means it was a tight fit. You know, don't go too small. You want to have it a little bit in excess. So when you measure it, you take your mics, and it's going to be difficult. Alright, so you want to measure your slug at the highest point. And what you would do is slowly rotate it inside the two jaws of the micrometer, and you will go until you get the highest point. In other words, don't just mic it anywhere. You got to rotate it around and catch the rifling as it sticks out on the slug on the corners and get the highest reading. So rotate it slowly, and if you go up high and then you start to drop down, you know you've went over the edge. A lot of people get confused on how to measure the slug, and they get a false reading. Okay, so, and this slug come out to be 310.5, which is 1/1000, and this is for the M39. 1/1000 out of spec. So, now let's, how we measure the bore diameter. Now the bore is just a hole it goes through. Alright, you take your gauge pins, and you just want the gauge pin to slide in. Okay, just like this here. Slides in the barrel, it's a little loose. That's called a slip fit. Now, this is a 299 thousandths pin. So 299 thousandths goes in here freely and moves, but 300 does not. Okay, so how you would say that's accurate, okay, the size of that hole, if you get a slip fit, add 1/1000, so that's 299, 300 on the nose, and that means that that is exactly 300 thousandths. That won't fit in there. That means that's what the size is. So that's how you gauge a quick measurement of your bore. So I will go over what I found with all the different ones, and then we'll go and look at, we're going to keep the M9130 as a control. Alright, so first one here is the M39. We had the slug, like I said, was 310.5, 310 thousandths and a half, and the bore come out to 300. Alright, here we have the M27, and actually this rifle is in fairly good shape. Okay, the rifling is good, it's not counterbored. It looks like it was refinished, and this one was, the barrel on there says 1937. So what did we get with this one? What we got is a groove diameter of 310, then the pin went to, I'm going to call it 301 because it barely took a 300, so 0.5 thousandths larger on the groove diameter and maybe 1 thousandths bigger on the bore. But of course this gun probably has been used, but still most of these Finnish guns are in pretty good shape. Now the Finnish M28, which is this one here, and this one has seen some use. This is counterbored, and the bore is not perfect, it's kind of worn, but this one slugged at 310.05. It's 310 thousandths and a half thousandths, and it also has, even worn, a 300 thousandths bore. The 300 pin will not go into that one. Okay, this gun was made in the M39 has a barrel date of 1944, so that's the newest manufactured one out of the bunch. This has a SIG barrel on it that was placed when it was rebuilt in, 1928. So you see the bores are very similar between these two. Now, we have the Finnish M91. that was rebarreled by Tikia in 1942. And so when we measured this, we slugged the bore on this one, and the slug diameter come out to 309 and a half, 309 thousandths and 5/10 thousandths. That is what the 6.5 by 53R should measure, okay, groove diameter wise. All right, so this is correct. Now, the bore measured 1/1000ths larger, 301, which plus or minus 1 really is not a big deal, okay? So then again, a variance like that is not that big of a deal and shouldn't, 1/1000ths really should not hurt accuracy much at all. Now, like I said, with the M9130s, I forget what this came out to. Hold on a second, I'll check the pin. Alright, a 302 pin will start, so you're looking 302 to 303. Some of them measured more or less, depends on the amount of wear. The wear on these guns when they came in, even after they were reworked, varies wildly. And like I said, I went through some of my past information, and groove diameters, I think 2 out of 25 rifles actually had like a 312 groove diameter, and the rest of them went up, as high as 3. I think I found one that said 316 on there. So as you see, the bore is slightly larger, and the groove diameter is deeper. Alright, so that's the difference. But the Finnish guns should work well with a 30 caliber. So let's recap what we got going on here. Alright, so we established that the Finnish guns do have tighter bores. I never knew this. I fired regular 311 diameter bullets through them. Okay, really, I don't think I messed them up or anything. Of course, I didn't shoot thousands of rounds through them, but I did. Plus, if they have a D stamped on the barrel, the throat has been open, so you can fire surplus ammo. For you guys that are just burning surplus. And actually, there's been some Czech light ball, Royal Tiger has it, and about 10 other different people have cases, a 7.62x54 Czech light ball with a 150 grain bullet. This is the newest batch that's available out there now. About 60 to 70 cents a round, but depending on who you get it from. But for you guys that don't reload, that's, what you got. For you guys that reload, like what I'm going to do is, I made my measurements and all this other stuff. So what I'm going to do is just load some, and you can use, you don't have to have 53R brass, you can use regular 54 brass. And when I talk about that, reloading die sets should, I know Lee and RCBS have both expanding plugs. So you can get the correct neck tension for a 308 bullet, switch out the expanding plug, get the correct neck tension for a 311 bullet. Okay, so that's something to look into. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reload some with the 30 caliber. Okay, 30 caliber bullet. And I'm going to fire them in the Swiss gun, or the Finnish guns. I'm going to fire them in the Finnish guns and see how they shoot. I've already fired these with regular 54R ammo with a huge bullet in there. And truthfully, the accuracy wasn't that good. I'm going to see if I can tune it up and tune a load with 30 caliber bullet and get some accuracy out of these weapons. Okay. I also have my Control M9130. I will take it, I will shoot it with some surplus ammo, and I'll shoot it with the 30 caliber ammo and see on the accuracy difference once I develop a 30 caliber load. Okay, so that's, you know, my advice to you. If you have finished guns and you really don't want to wear them out bad, I mean, if you fire a few rounds through them, you shouldn't really worry about it. But if you get into where you're going to fire hundreds and hundreds, you should maybe get into reloading and get 30 caliber bullets. I don't know if anyone makes commercially a 6.2 by 54R with a 30 caliber bullet on there or not. I don't know. Okay, this is why, even though hand loading is extremely expensive, and truthfully these rounds are going to cost more than just steel cased wolf ammo or surplus ammo. Okay, I calculated it out. They're going to be well over $1 a round. Okay. So that's what we're going to try. So that explains the difference. You know, these barrels are tighter. They should be able to shoot a 30 caliber bullet fairly well. I mean, they're tight enough. They should, if they're in good shape. And then, like I said, we got our M9130 to use as a control, and we'll see how the accuracy goes across all these guns. Alright, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.